Hello everybody and welcome back to Fresh Off the Field, presented to you by WUTK's Rock Solid Sports. Got my guy Joseph Bonanno here with me tonight. I'm your host Jack Foster. We are recapping the Vols' 59-10 win over Ball State to begin their 2022 season here in year 2 of the Heupel era. Joseph, a big win for the Big Orange tonight.
Absolutely, and they came out firing on all cylinders. I mean, with the interception by Tamarian McDonald on the first play of the game.
Yes.
And then turn it around offensively on the first offensive drive. One play, one touchdown pass, 23 yards to Jalen Hyatt.
I mean, when's the last time you've seen something like that?
From the Vols.
First play a pick, and then the next play is a touchdown strike. I mean, can't get much better than that, right?
From the Vols, I don't think I've ever seen that, but this is exactly what the new Josh Heupel era is supposed to be. You're supposed to play fast. You're supposed to get on the board fast, and that's exactly what Tennessee did. And then not only did they get on the board fast, but they got on the board very often.
Yes, they did, scoring, I believe it was 38 points in the first half, scoring 59 in total for the game. Hendon Hooker, a pretty good performance tonight, 18 of 25, over 220 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He dominated in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker did a lot of good things. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. And his decision-making was really good. He played in a very clean pocket. Credit to the offensive lineman who did a really good job today. Obviously, it wasn't against the SEC defense that they're going to see later in the year, but
a solid job nonetheless.
A really good job by the offensive line, especially where they had some questions on one side of the line. But Gerald Mincy, I think, played really well to start the game, and then everyone else who got in there also did a good job. But back to Hendon Hooker, we didn't really see something that we saw last year, which is his ability to run in space in the open field. It was more of his ability over towards the goal line. And we talked about in his post-game press conference, is what he said, is he was able to read the defense. They were able to focus on Tennessee's running game, which did a really good job as well.
Yes.
And that allowed Hendon Hooker's legs, which is going to be a really big factor for this Tennessee offense.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker, maybe not the most sharpest we've ever seen him, with accuracy,
Yeah.
but he's making a lot of good decisions, and he made some killer throws too. I mean, the throw to Walker Merrill, rotating left, out of position a little bit, but a strike to hit Merrill right in stride. Thought it was one of the best throws of the game.
Yeah, I noticed Hendon Hooker, a couple of those sideline passes on a lot of those screen plays, which Tennessee, I noticed, called a lot of them.
Moving fast, baby.
It helps move fast and trying to fill that Velus Jones role. But he did sail a couple of those throws, but I think he was able to settle in and not let a bad throw affect his next one. And he did a really good job managing the game as Tennessee's quarterback. And then obviously Joe Milton coming in as the backup did a really good job as well. I think that throw to Jimmy Holiday, which was Jimmy Holiday's first touchdown pass or first touchdown catch of his career here at Tennessee, the 53-yard touchdown. I think that was probably my best throw of the day.
Play of the game. Yeah,
probably because Joe Milton doesn't make that play back in 2021.
Yeah, you just see the growth he's had over the offseason. I mean, position coaches and Josh Heupel alike have raved about him this offseason, and it really showed tonight. I mean, this was not the Joe Milton of 2021. Really efficient, 8 of 9 passing. His only incompletion was just a throw that was a touch high, maybe a touch too hard, but Hunter Salmon should have caught it wide open in the end zone. So Milton could have easily been 100% on the night, and I just really liked what I saw of the guy.
Yeah, and it's good to have that kind of backup for Tennessee. One that, first off, plays similar to your starting quarterback. He's got the legs, he's got the arm talent that Hendon Hooker does. But he also knows this system. I mean, this is his second year in the system as well. So you're going to have a lot of confidence in that kind of guy coming in if disaster were to strike and Hendon Hooker were no longer to go.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Hendon banged up a couple times last season, so it definitely could happen. Maybe Milton's more equipped to handle a situation like we saw in the Ole Miss game last year, this year. So I want to touch on the receivers a little bit. You mentioned Jimmy Holiday, big play there, but we saw a lot of receivers get some action tonight, going all the way down to Squirrel White. The one I was most impressed with was probably Brew McCoy.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", but he doesn't even play big. He's shifty. He doesn't go down, Joseph.
Yep, 3 catches for 42 yards.
And he didn't play a whole lot, but when he got the ball in his hands,
it's not going to jump off the stat sheet, but he provides a lot of good balance on the opposite side of Cedric Tillman. And, you look at the stat sheet, Cedric Tillman 6 for 69, Holiday 4 for 62, Keaton 4 for 57, McCoy 3 for 42. It's a lot of balance. And you know what that shows me? There's a lot of depth in this Tennessee wide receiver room, which was a big question coming into the season with guys like Bayless Jones and Javonte Payton no longer with the team.
Absolutely. And, big depth question mark in the offseason was the running back room. I thought, we didn't see a lot of guys there tonight. Only 4 are on scholarship. But, I really liked what I saw to Jabari Small, especially Jalen Wright, especially considering he's been banged up. I thought Jalen Wright looked phenomenal out here tonight. And then even Dylan Sampson did a great job filling in with that third-team offense.
Yeah, and, the running backs, again, another question mark coming in, especially with Lynn J. Dixon leaving the team. That kind of depth, that depth being not as there as we've used to being seen here at Tennessee. But I think those guys did a really good job. Jabari Small, I think
ran hard.
Ran probably the hardest I think I've ever seen him run.
That
7-yard touchdown where he got a little push from his offensive line. It kind of threw me back to that Purdue game back in the Music City Bowl. I really thought that once the momentum stopped, they weren't able to keep going. But I guess Jabari Small proved them wrong here.
Yeah. I was actually pretty impressed out of the Tennessee running game, even though I feel like the passing game is going to overshadow that.
Oh, yeah.
Then you move to the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned Tamari McDonald's interception, but Kamal Hadden also got a turnover of his own. Encouraging to see there. You go back to last season, Tennessee didn't force a turnover against Bowling Green or Pitt. Took them to week 3 against Tennessee Tech. They got 2 tonight.
Yeah, and the secondary was probably the biggest question mark of this Tennessee team coming in, and I think they played really well. Obviously, that one drive coming out of the second half, the touchdown drive, I think it was 10 plays, 75 yards for Ball State, was probably their weakest drive of the game. But other than that, I think the secondary played really well. Like you mentioned, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups tonight. That's not the same secondary we saw against Purdue back in the Music City Bowl that got just exposed. I think they did a really good job kind of bouncing back from their last performance, that last time we saw the secondary on the field. And doing a good job without guys like Alontae Taylor and Theo Jackson in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, some people, I could see where Warren Burrell struggled tonight, but I felt like he hit hard when he tackled, played really physical. He's got to touch up a couple of things in coverage. We know that's Warren Burrell's issue. It's been that issue has existed for a while now. But you look at Christian Charles, tackling machine tonight. You look at Kamal Hadden making plays, forcing turnovers. I was pretty impressed all in all, but their biggest test will be against Pitt, obviously, next week. Go to the linebacker core. Thought Aaron Beasley played well tonight. Jawan Mitchell couldn't give it a go. They hope to have him back next week, but the linebacker core did pretty well.
Yeah, and the linebacker, that front 7, probably the strongest part of this Tennessee defense. Not any sacks tonight for Tennessee.
John Paddock was getting rid of the ball pretty quick.
He was. Very credit to Ball State quarterback John Paddock. He was getting hit a lot, though. I think we 3 or 4 times there in that first half, we noticed that he just absolutely got crunched between 2 Tennessee defenders. But other than that, I think Tennessee did a really good job rushing the quarterback. They obviously made him hurry. They made some of his throws errant. You could see by the accuracy on some of them. A lot of overthrows, a lot of...
he had 16 incompletions, and I feel like at least half of those were because of Tennessee's pressure.
Yeah, and so... Tennessee's defense, I think they're going to be all right. They're still kind of adjusting to. I still feel like they're adjusting to Josh Heupel's offense and trying to stay endured and keep that endurance throughout all 4 quarters of the game. But that's where depth plays in. And as you get into the season, you can see your true depth. So it's really hard to take away from the defense in game 1. Same thing with the offense. But from what we saw, I feel confident going into next week at least against Pitt.
Yeah, a lot of depth we saw on that defensive side. On the offensive side, a great opportunity for Tennessee to flash that depth tonight in a blowout win over Ball State to kick off the 2022 season in year 2 of the Heupel era. Starting it off right, the true test will come next weekend when they go up north to play Pitt in a physical Johnny Majors Classic Part 2. For Joseph Bonanno, I'm Jack Foster. This has been Fresh Off the Field, presented to you by Rock Solid Sports.